Wamai is going to lose a scope again. He had a scope, then it got removed, then he got another scope, and now that's going to be removed. Scope musical chairs continues. I'm going to talk about it. So we got a new round of patch notes recently, and it doesn't seem to be super bad. There are a couple of points that I think people are upset about, particularly the buck change, where he's going to be losing his Con 6. There was a really interesting note about taking a scope away from Melusi and giving her an extra Banshee, which really dedicates her to the anchor role, to a point that I wonder if it might not be a bad idea to just give her a scoped weapon like a TCSG, if that's going to be her job description, more or less. It seems to occupy a role that's not too different than that of Cayde in terms of her positioning, where she's going to be playing mostly within the bomb rooms or a room adjacent to it with the shotgun and the Banshee charges that she's going to deploy. 4 of those now. She's going to have a really tough time getting the site set up in a quick way, so I imagine that she's going to have a plan, set those up, and then stay put. But one of the reasons that they ultimately ended up doing this was because Melusi is doing very well right now with the ACOG on her MP5. Ubisoft said that Melusi was performing better than Doc and Rook. Now, I think that has to do with being able to play off of the traps, and maybe to a certain extent, people still kind of want to play aggro with her. Years of muscle memory with her being a dedicated roamer is going to be difficult to get rid of. But at the end of the day, it's clear that the experiment for the defense in terms of the scope problem has given us similar results to what happened in the past. If you are in a defensive position, you can hold, especially pixel angles, much more effectively. It gives you more options in terms of off angles and on angles that you can hold to make sure that you keep map control and that the attackers cannot take fair engagements. You can take them from a distance, you can take them from up close if you want to anyway, because you're not going to be really as negatively impacted by the FOV kind of mishmash that'll happen if you peek really close with an ACOG, if you're going to be playing defensively and passively. You just sit there, wait, boom. And unfortunately, I think there are a number of reasons for this. I think that it quite literally has to do with geometry and just the nature of warfare in general. After all, this game is modeled after police raids. People are always going to have a defensive advantage when they are inside a building and whenever they are fortified. Your position can take a lot of punishment and you don't really have to do anything. The attackers, right, the burden of the work is on them. Remember, in a 5v5 plant the bomb to win game, the attackers have to make things move. The defenders, in a perfect world, right, if nobody moved, if the round starts, the defenders will win every single time, because the win condition for the defenders is just to prevent the bomb from going down for 3 minutes. The attackers have to move the envelope. So, in that sense, right, when we have a game as complex as Rainbow Six Siege, where we're trying to ascertain a number of different entry points from outside a building and coordinate that with our team, there are many small tactical decisions that the attackers have to take in order to break down the defense's strategic posture. So the attackers have to defeat strategy with tactics. This had ramifications during the utility simulator of 2020, which some people claim they miss now. I'm not sure if they were playing the game back then or if they just have rose-tinted glasses now, because I remember doing content for Rainbow Six back in 2020, and a lot of people were very irritated about it being basically League of Legends with guns. Now people are mad that it's Call of Duty. Now they want it to be League of Legends with guns. I don't think it should be Call of Duty. I don't think it should be League of Legends with guns. I think Rainbow Six Siege is at its best when it's somewhere in the middle in terms of the utility and gunplay aspect, when they take the two things and fuse them into a great siege pie. But ultimately, defense is always going to have an advantage, especially if you have gadgetry. And the gunfighting argument is no exception. It's not necessarily that it makes the engagements easier to take, but it does make engagements at distance much more difficult to contest. Because if the attackers don't have options, right, they have to jiggle peek it, they have to drone. If you're in a position where you can get pre-fired, yeah, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But like I said before, the whole point of the scope is to give you more off angles. This has been true since the game came out in 2015. We had a ton of defenders with the ACOGs back in the day, and people were playing really aggressively, peeking from every window that you can imagine. You had Jaeger, you had Smoke with the SMG-11, obviously Doc and Rook. There were tons of guns that you look back at now and you're like, how the heck did these guns ever have ACOGs on them? I can't believe they would do that. And for a long time, it was pretty difficult to get out of spawn if you were playing against people that were conscientious and they were just playing aggro and they had good gun skill. There weren't really a lot of strategic options that you could do to get around that. You just had to get your gun up and win the fight. And some people do appreciate that, but I also feel like at the same time, people have this idea that, again, Rainbow Six Siege was this like cop LARP simulator back in 2015, and it wasn't. It was only a cop LARP simulator if you and your buddies, you know, who never played a cop shooter before, were bot walking around and not, you know, peeking things correctly. Obviously, this is part of the course, you know, for 10 years at this point. Melusi getting a gunfight adjustment. Jaeger, everybody knows about Jaeger, right? He's had his gun adjusted again and again and again and again, to the point where a lot of people got really sick and fed up with it. And it's a shame because those decisions, right, that happen, regardless of whether they happened years ago or not, are still felt now. And comparatively, I'm not really sure why Jaeger's weapon in particular hasn't been touched. There seems to be this pattern of defense has the defensive position, so they can't have any kinds of useful fragging options. As it stands, it seems that attackers really do have a huge slant in terms of just the gunfighting department. Tons of attackers have hard-hitting, scoped assault rifles. If you don't hit the head, you can melt in 3 to 4 body shots. Defenders, comparatively, right, they have headshots, but they have to hit the head or they're probably going to lose the gunfight. So you have to be more precise. Attackers have a little bit more leeway because they can hit a bigger target and kill you in a pretty quick amount of time. For a long time, the big thing about Thunderbird and Jaeger was the fact that they had assault rifles on defense. That was kind of a little, oh, okay, this is like a fun little thing. Thunderbird was a very, very fun ranked operator for a time because she had a powerful shotgun, the machine pistol, and she had a really good set and forget gadget. Then the C4 on top of it really rounded her out. Now it's kind of, you know, a little more, you know, it's not, no one really plays Thunderbird anymore, which is kind of lame. I really did enjoy playing her. Same thing with Jaeger, right? You put down the gadgetry, and it just so happened to be a very, very useful gadget. But at the end of the day, when people played him in ranked, they just wanted to gun. And I get that. I get that the game shouldn't be a gunner simulator, but I also feel like there's an element of fun that's involved in the gunning because the game is one-shot, headshot, and pretty snappy gunplay that, you know, it's really tough to approach the situation correctly. So this is not new. Wamai losing his scope, Melusi losing his scope is not new. I think they were testing it out with Visual for a little bit with a 1.5, and then they immediately rolled that back before it even got on the live build. Thorin, I believe, had a scope on her UZK at one point. I think everybody kind of assumed that this was going to happen, right? Like, we were going to give people a scope just to kind of, we were going to look at the data, and then the data showed us, lo and behold, wow, yeah, you know, scopes from a defensive posture are really powerful, and now they're getting switched around again. And now, you know, we're kind of back to where we started, which we were trying to avoid by getting rid of the 1.5 in the first place, which is a little bit disappointing. It creates this environment, which is in line with Ubisoft's approach for balancing, from what I can tell, where versatility is not allowed. You're not allowed to gun and have a decent gadget at the same time. It's not okay. You have to be one or the other. You either have to have an amazing gadget with a craptastic gun or a craptastic gadget with an amazing gun. And even then, they'll probably still nerf the gun anyway, as was the case with Ela. Ela got impact grenades, and I'm just kind of looking at that and thinking, okay, yeah, that's really interesting, but her gadget has been nerfed so many times to the point where I just don't really see a point in using it aside from Thorn. I think there's an argument to be made with the Ela wind-up time where you can throw it at somebody and maybe play a little bit more actively. I would like that, but the stun capability of the Ela mine has been mitigated so many times. You can't even stop people from sprinting anymore. They can just run straight through the mine, which that just really, really stinks in my opinion, because one of the things that was cool about Ela was that it was also a crowd control gadget, and you could play the whole trapdoor spider technique, you know, that you would kind of play with Melusi, except that was done with a 3-speed roamer, and you could, you know, you had a lot more flexibility. It was a different play style for that kind of trap and surprise kind of play style. And now we just don't really have that, even though we've pivoted so largely to traps in this meta right now. Because at a certain point, defenders, right, if they can't take gunfights the way they want to, they're just going to create unfair gunfight situations as often and as quickly as they can. So that's why Fenrir, even after the nerf, some people corrected me in yesterday's video, and I realized, wow, yeah, I guess Fenrir still is a pretty big part of the meta right now, just because it's basically, his gadget is basically a flashbang that goes off again and again and again, and you can hide it in places that are difficult to find, and as if you don't shoot it, then it's going to keep going off over and over and over again. I've had several situations with Fenrir's where it's like, I've had to go on the other side of the map because if I'm in a time crunch situation, I remember one example, I was playing Clubhouse and it was a 1v1 situation with I didn't have much time on attack to make a play. And there was a Fenrir somewhere by the Clubhouse garage stairs that I knew that I was not going to be able to find in time, and taking that engagement was just going to be too dangerous. So I made a decision to just sprint, right? Go around and go up red stairs and take the engagement that way. And then I was able to win the engagement there. But it really comes to show you that Rainbow Six Siege is a game about resource management more than it is gunfighting. But if you have the resources at your disposal, it will make those gunfights pretty much impossible for other players to win. And that's part of the frustration of the gameplay loop, I think, for some people, is that they don't feel there's any kind of counterplay. And maybe that's why we're adjusting the scopes of the way that we are, because there are a lot of engagements where I'm like, dang, that's a really good angle. But at the same time, I feel like we have options to deal with, you know, somebody holding a lawn angle with a really good gun. So it just kind of begs the question, we're kind of back to where we started. How important is gunfighting in this game? And how much of it does it play a role, especially in balancing defenders? Because I don't want to get to a point where we're having the same conversation that we had 3 years ago when we added the 1.5 scope, and then we're just, you know, then we're chasing our tail on this one. One caveat that I had to this that I mentioned was, if you're gonna have a character like Melusi who's basically been turned into a sight anchor, but you wanted to give them a long-range punch option, I think that the TCSG, and perhaps maybe more guns like the TCSG, you could add more slug shotguns. I don't know how people would feel about a pump action slug shotgun with a scope on it. That would be very interesting. I think it would, you know, it would make it a skill-based kind of thing. The Boss G just, like, it can't really be used for a sight setup, right? It's a shotgun, but you can't really use it for sight setup. It's more like a two-shot DMR. A lot of people are really irritated with the situation with the Boss G ACOG right now because thanks to the slow nature of the gunfighting at this point, if you get the first shot off with the Boss G, I've been one-shotted from full health to the chest on a free armor character with the Boss G, where I'm just sort of like, okay. Like, every once in a while, taking those gunfights every once in a while, I'm just sort of like, okay, man. Like, I know there's damage fall off. I think if you're close enough, then it'll one-shot, and then if you get further away, that doesn't really count as much. But I don't know. I would be really curious to see what Ubisoft could do with that. I don't want to, you know, add more one-shot kill guns to the game on defense with scopes. Like, that would probably, I would get a Reddit thread. I'd get dragged on Twitter, but I'm really curious about it. Maybe if they added more, parts of the hitbox, let's say like you had to hit like the shoulders and upper chest or the head in order for that to be a one-shot kill, and you couldn't do it on free armors. I'm really curious about that. I don't know what you guys think of that, but that's just something that I was considering. I don't know if you can give Melusi the TCSG because it's so prolific as it stands on Cade and Goyo, but I'm really curious if you could give another skill-based precision shot option for defense that didn't just amount to spraying at head level with the full auto low recoil gun like the MP5K. Right, maybe the rate of fire on this slug pump shotgun could, you know, not like boom, chick, boom, but more like a boom, chick, boom, like that. Like the shotguns we have already. You wouldn't even have to make a new asset. Okay, hear me out. You could take the M590, right? I'm trying to help you, Ubisoft. You don't have to make a new asset. Okay, you don't have to add more stuff on the plane. You could just take an M590, Give it a new I'm cooking. Give it a new coat of paint. Give it a wood furniture. Oh my god. Rainbow Fudge Siege? Bro, oh my god. You could get the Warner Brothers collab? Ubisoft, come on. Come on, man. Overall, I think that I understand that you can't give every defender like a laser beam gun at a million miles away, but I also think that we should consider the fun aspect of the gameplay. And when we, consistently end up, taking away options, when we just got done trying to figure out whether or not we could keep doing that, it gets to a point where a lot of people look at the situation and are like, I'm not really sure what Ubisoft is doing here. And I think I have an idea of what Ubisoft's doing, but I think the communication aspect of that, trying to get that to the player base, trying to get the player base to understand where they're coming from, that's the difficult component of it. And I don't know how much they should take stock of that. As it stands with gaming, especially on YouTube, it's just very, very influenced by negativity bias. So a lot of these companies are just going to be incapable of doing anything right, regardless of whether they do something right or not. Every live service multiplayer game is going to suffer from this problem, but the new season and the way that it's shaken out and the cheating thing is, in my opinion, contributing to just general negative sentiment about the state of the game. And I would like it if we could get to a place where once the infrastructure is established and we've, tackled these issues, we can get back to what people enjoy about the game, which is the combination of strategic and tactical decision making that can't be found in other FPS games, and gunplay that is rewarding, but not cheap, right? It's skill-based, and I appreciate that. What do you guys think of the scope change or whatever? Again, are you guys curious to see what Melusi's gonna do in the next patch? Let me know. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I've skipped, I think, 5 uploads for my, my not daily upload schedule. So I will be at 25 for July. I will try to finish strong through July with 25 uploads. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I am juggling a lot of different things at the moment, but I'm going to try my best. So I'll see if I'm here tomorrow. Deuces.